Hello, MedTech Insights followers. I am host Dr. Jennifer Joe, along with host Dr. Ami Bhatt. We're delighted to have you joining us today and to join our talk show. If you don't know that much about me, am a emergency medicine physician. I was the founder and editor-in-chief of MedTech Boston, very passionate about digital health telemedicine and have been doing this for almost 10 years. I am joined by Dr. Ami Bhatt. She's currently located in her beautiful office at Mass General Hospital. She is an amazing leader in the field, always teaching American Heart Association courses, American College of Cardiology courses. She is the director of MGH cardio telemedicine. Am I saying it right? Are you about to think over?
All those words go together. It's perfect. Thank you for the introduction. Telecardiology and outpatient cardiology, which interestingly, telecardiology was kind of not a thing. There were, many of us who loved this for the past decade. And our heyday came along with a pandemic, which maybe is one of the only silver linings, but really a chance to start to make a change. A note for everybody, as with all of my social media sites, these are my opinions and don't represent the opinions of the organizations which I work for. It's funny, there was a full moon, I think, over this weekend, and both Dr. Joe and I have, just had one of those busy weeks. I don't know if anybody out there feels like they've had one of those weeks. Please feel free to chat in and let us know if that's the case. But it's always nice to be able to come together and talk about digital health and innovation. And today we get to focus a little bit on thinking about how we learn about innovation, how we're going to change, how we're going to educate one another, and even, the role of storytelling in all of this. So incredibly excited for our guests today, and hope we have a lot of questions from the audience as well, although I know Dr. Joe and I have a ton of questions already lined up for these two folks.
Yes, definitely. Very excited about our guest today. Just want to give you a little bit more information about MedTech Insights. It was, yes, all of the views that are expressed today are my own or Ami's own and don't represent any of the institutions or organizations we may occasionally or full-time work for. About MedTech Insights, we are live, a talk show every Tuesday at noon. So make sure to set a reminder, follow us, keep that in mind. We're dedicated to digital health and telemedicine, again, one of our passions. Every week, we're going to have 2 new guests. So if you have a guest that you particularly love, let us know. If you have someone in mind that you think we should feature in the show, please reach out to us and we'd love to invite them. We are taking questions from the audience. This is interactive, so please get your questions ready. Go ahead and share it, and we'll also share it with our guests and discuss it. The purpose for our show is healthcare is fast changing. COVID has made our life very fast in some respects, very slow in some respects. But in the healthcare realm, it's super fast changing. We are here to talk about what's happening on the ground and specifically to learn what clinicians think about current care and where we think it's going. Where was digital health? Where is it now? Where do we think it's going in the future? What are we excited about? Learn more about the upcoming shows and follow along at Vanguard.Health. So that's about the show. Get your questions ready. Over to you, Ami.
Absolutely. So excited to introduce our speakers today. We have 2 guests. We have Josh John, who's from Boehringer Ingelheim Pharmaceuticals, and he currently works as the Director of Strategic Planning there. So very excited to have him. And we also have Mike Marett, who's founder and CEO of Confideo Labs. One of the things that we really love about this is we also get a chance to meet all these fantastic people, and you get a chance to meet them and get a glimpse into them, which is a little different than just watching them on Twitter or LinkedIn, but actually conversing. So again, write in your questions, give us comments, and maybe we'll bring on both Josh and Mike together today.
Wonderful. So get excited about Josh and Mike. Welcome, Josh and Mike.
Good afternoon.
Hi, guys.
So excited to have you guys here. Thank you for joining us. I think we'll just jump in because there's so much to cover in just the next 25 minutes. Josh, let's just start with you a little bit. So, the Director of Strategic Planning at Boehringer Ingelheim, but kind of watching your career, you have skyrocketed there, and you have taken digital innovation, along with you over these past months and years. Would love to kind of hear your thoughts about where you think you guys are headed with digital innovation and what some of your passion is about it.
Yeah, no, thank you again for having us. We're so excited to be here and really looking forward to the discussion. So yeah, I've been with the company about 15 years in a number of different roles, and really about 6-7 years ago, got very passionate about reimagining the customer experience and being able to take digital technologies that hadn't historically been used in healthcare and pharma and putting them at the forefront. No surprise to many of you that in gaming or CPG that people are wearing headsets or using augmented reality technology. But I would say most people 7 years ago would have said probably not expected within the healthcare space, maybe not so much in pharma. But I got a chance to meet Mike 6-7 years ago, and we've started reimagining the patient and provider experience using those new immersive technologies, and something I'm super passionate about. The ability to come in and tell a story using technology, using digital, and being able to bring content to life. Content that usually is honestly difficult to understand. Let's be real, when our patients are in the office and they're hearing about a diagnosis, sometimes that becomes a little bit overwhelming. And in a lot of cases, they leave that office not completely sure on what to do next. How can we now take technology and really build that strong story so they understand their condition and provide them really strong education? So something I'm incredibly passionate about, and taking new and innovative technologies and bringing them to the forefront.
This is fantastic. So I have to tell you, as I'm in the clinic and I'm seeing patients, one of the things that I find the hardest, and many clinicians out there may feel the same way, is having enough time with the patient to be able to explain to them what's going on, make sure they have a certain level of understanding, figure out their health literacy or their digital literacy, and then be able to adjust your ability to talk to that. And so the idea that perhaps we can use different adult learning techniques, perhaps more immersive techniques, and techniques based in like the human interaction of storytelling, which has been around for so long, for a reason, is exciting. How realistic is it, though? Let me just jump right in. I told Josh, just so everybody in the audience knows, that I was going to put his feet to the fire a little quickly today. How realistic, though, is it for somebody like me, a clinician, to say, this could be in the future during the years when I'm practicing? What are the gaps? How far are we from that? How are we going to get there?
Listen, I think we're getting there. I mean, you're busy, and the time that you get to spend with your patients continues to get shorter and shorter, as much as I know you'd love to spend lots of time with them, but you're running from one thing to the other. But I think companies like ours, along with the work that Confideo Labs is doing, we're trying to make it easy for you, right? To be able to provide solutions so that patients can be educated on demand, whether that's right there in front of you or going home and having content that they can engage in. And I know you've done a lot of great work in telehealth, and I know you've incorporated a number of these things into the work that you're doing. But whether it's right there in the moment or being able to do it in the comfort of their own home with their caregiver, I think we're getting there. And the work that we've done in partnership with Confideo has been really at the forefront of that, and really proud of the impact that we're making on the lives of patients all over the world.
I love that. The idea that we're thinking about virtual care and you are bringing to us virtual education. No, Dr. Bott, it doesn't have to be exactly in the clinic. Just like you're doing virtual health at home, we can do virtual education and supplement that for the patient. Thank you for that. I think that's great. Mike, maybe we'll kind of bring you in on this as well. So founder and CEO again of Confideo Labs and collaborating with Josh John. As you've looked at this industry, you've grown this field, right? So your company is one of the first to say, hey, this is going to be a thing and we need to be there. We need to be there with an immersive experience. How have you seen that grow over the past couple of years, and especially this last year? Has there been a change in the pace of adoption?
Yeah, well, thank you guys so much again for inviting me to be a part of this discussion. I really appreciate the opportunity. So certainly, through our lens as content creators, we have a tremendous appreciation for the complexity of clinical content, even oftentimes things which may seem simplistic, such as data points. there's just loads of opportunity, primarily in our category, to kind of reimagine, as Josh suggested, the way that this content is being delivered. So I would tell you that for the moment, we're really living amongst this real interesting time where it feels like a revolution in media and content creation. Where we've focused on our healthcare programs is thinking pretty straightforward in a way where we can remove the borders from some of the legacy kind of contextual things such as screens with borders, and determine ways to enhance the visualizations of otherwise very complex storylines. And we're doing that through virtual reality, augmented reality, and even mixed reality. And it's proving across the spectrum to really bolster the vibrancy of the ways that we can connect with both practitioners to assist you, oftentimes even give you a unique vantage point you can't otherwise achieve when you're viewing imagery or even 3D models on your desks. We can take you, as an example, on a kind of fantastical voyage at an anatomical and cellular scale level through the body, so you can peer around organs and understand things such as mechanism of action from sort of a first-person point of view. Or we can create video-based programs that provide you a new perspective and really heighten empathy to bolster storytelling around maybe what patients and caregivers are going through, to assist when you're doing a clinical assessment. So you're right, we've been really pioneering the category since 2013. In 2014, the rubber started to meet the road for things like virtual reality, some big acquisitions between Oculus, Facebook, et cetera, and the writing started to be on the wall. And now, 7 years later, with the advent of even augmented reality and the fact that everyone is in effect carrying a device with ubiquitous capability to kind of project immersive media from it, it's giving us tremendous opportunity to continue to grow and bring more relevancy to the category.
So I love this, and I love this discussion. I'm in the internal medicine world, nephrology world, and sometimes people don't think of us as that techie. And we've been talking about augmented reality and virtual reality for a while. I don't totally know the difference. So maybe someone could explain that. But also, Ami, have you seen much virtual or AR used? I think the surgeons are more familiar with it than maybe ER docs, internal medicine docs, or nephrologists.
Yeah, I feel like I've seen it more in the surgical space. My surgical colleagues, even on Twitter or LinkedIn, are oftentimes more showing pictures and videos and using it. I do think cardiology is next. I think we are on the brink, so we're coming, and I think a lot of companies are coming for us, so we're excited. But no, I hear you. So actually, Mike, this might be a great point for just the audience, augmented versus VR. And I think you may actually have some slides. So if you have some cool things you want to show us, we in the audience would love to see a little bit of that too, and then kind of rejoin a conversation.
Sure. Yeah, so I'm requesting to share some slides here, which I think will give some good context to our discussion. Let me know when we're live. Perfect. Okay, let me go full screen. Okay, so as I suggested, we're going to talk about what we call immersive multimedia. There are other kind of categorical references which are synonymous, such as maybe extended reality, but subcategorically, what we want to give some perspective on to educate the room and the group is on sort of the differences of VR or virtual reality, MR or mixed reality, and then AR or augmented reality, some of the kind of benefits and some proven case examples across healthcare as well for everyone's benefit.
Okay, I did not know there was a mixed reality. I now feel like we're in an educational, like doctory world, and like, now there's the combination. Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to the explanation.
Yeah, for sure. And it is important because I think some people get hung up on the notion of VR, which again, may leave you to perceive things as just relating to programs delivered on a headset. But in fact, we're operating kind of a higher level and really just building content which is multidimensional and interactive, experiential, and then disseminating across channels as needed. But just to kind of corroborate the merits here categorically, you can see I'm showing some data. Generally in these kind of discussions, people like to understand what trend data looks like. So, you can see that as projected by 2024, we're talking about nearly a $300 billion industry. So it's growing quite rapidly over the past 6-7 years. And we're going to jump in now. So VR or virtual reality, simply defined or stated, these are these are experiences or content programs which are built for the spirit of, in effect, replacing reality. You're seeing this one data point here highlighted in pink. This is coming from a third-party study that was commissioned whereby we presented medical content in the traditional context. It was actually video-based, but flat screen with borders. And then that same experience presented to physicians on a headset. And then a recall and kind of retention study was commissioned. And you can see that the recall coming from the VR program was as high as 90%. So I'm sure you would agree that for physicians in particular, it's really important. And for me as a patient, I really appreciate that this kind of format is delivering the content in a way that's really meaningful and relevant to heighten the recall and retention of the key components to the storyline. And it makes sense if you think, again, I'm going to hold this headset. If you think about VR in its most traditional context, what are we doing here? We're taking experiences, we're putting them on a headset, and in doing so, we're leveraging the fact that the headset is fundamentally removing and depriving all distractions from the user. So in today's world, especially, everyone is competing with multiple screens, physicians such as yourselves with heavy workload, patient care, et cetera, always thinking of other things. All of that goes away when you go in a headset. And then furthermore, the screen within the device can achieve something that very few other screens can claim, and that's going to be what you see across the bottom. It's a guaranteed focus on content. So as marketers and storytellers or educators, really the screen is kind of the holy grail with everything that it can achieve and deliver.
So this is exciting. So if we were going to say, perhaps some of us are coming up on our recertification for board exams, 90% retention.
We're getting so old. I mean, we're reboarding.
I know. But this is great. So this is physician education. And you're right, allowing us to just completely immerse ourselves in that educational piece. By the way, the next time we have you guys on, I want to try one of these myself too. So we're going to have to make that happen.
Sure.
Excellent. All right. So Mike, we're looking at, so that's virtual reality.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you have some examples of what the others look like too for us.
I do. And I'm going to click ahead. One other quick item on VR is, the background screen you're seeing in the previous images, that's just to show you kind of that fantastical voyage I was alluding to that happened to be within the lungs. Those were alveoli. Other ways to harness VR, though, just so you can think outside of the box, is using video as well. So we know that empathy is an important kind of undertone to a lot of pharmaceutical and healthcare educational initiatives. So this unique ability to place practitioners such as yourselves, as you can see here, through these first-person simulation experiences using a headset is also incredibly compelling. In the previous slide, we showed that the brain actually presumes it's in this virtual world and accepts it as reality in only a matter of seconds. So again, with that comes great responsibility as content creators, but great opportunity as storytellers. So I'll move ahead here. Two other items on VR where you're seeing loads of movement over the past many, many years is outside of storytelling and marketing and education, but also in things such as surgical training. A company called Oso VR doing wonderful things there. And then the last point is around therapeutic applications. There's this burgeoning category known as distraction therapy. One of the pioneers in this space is a colleague of ours based out of Cedars-Sinai, Dr. Brennan Spiegel, who's doing tremendous work there. And as you can see, and again, another mechanism for substantiating the category, if you're a patient that's in such pain, you check yourself into the hospital, those patients are going into VR experiences and they're demonstrating clinically a reduction in pain as high as 24%, which again substantiates the benefit of the vehicle and how it takes you away, and of course the power of the brain.
That is fantastic. So now we're really looking at not only physician education, potentially a physician, nurse, sonographer, anybody education. We're also looking at that patient experience, both having us understand the patient experience by perhaps being in that, right? You saw those psoriatic sores on the arm, et cetera. And then allowing our patients an escape, because boy, do I have patients who are in the hospital for multiple days, and to be able to not feel like they're there, and to be able to escape that experience or that pain, but just the emotional experience of being in the hospital for that long, right? What an accomplishment that would be. This is fantastic.
So I never even thought about that, Ami, the emotional experience. I know it's not fun to be in the hospital, and it's emotionally really stressful. There's, disorientation and delirium that a number of patients face, and that impact our quality and length of stay. From my understanding, or from my following of the data has really good studies in terms of pain control. So if we can decrease the amount of opioids that we give a patient, help them recover from pain after surgery, and chronic pain as well, I think that's really promising. The concept of allowing a patient to do that in a much healthier way, especially removing the opioid side and the complications of that, is really compelling. But I love that application as well, just the patient experience in the hospital in general. And I bet we could find some interesting data points on if the patient's happier, they potentially recover faster, have better outcomes, and will discharge from the hospital faster. Very interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so just again, simply stated, to land the plane on VR, these are opportunities to really leverage a headset, replace reality. There's loads of opportunity across channels, across audiences, et cetera. Also, content that's built for headset can be extracted from the headset. You can enjoy it as things such as 360 video off of YouTube, Vimeo, Facebook, et cetera. So again, that's giving legs to this kind of complex content creation, so you can use it in many, many ways. But moving from VR into MR, very briefly, where VR replaces mixed reality, is simply defined as something which will blend reality. So a combo of the physical and the digital spaces. These examples here we're showing just for your benefit are to give reference to some of the ways that we've reinvigorated the CME channel as an example. So again, more in the pre-COVID context, when you were actually going to conferences and congresses and attending large symposiums where you had colleagues of yourselves delivering sort of a didactic presentation, oftentimes off of PowerPoint. Our observation of that sort of channel and opportunity was that you had the experts on stage, you had the folks in the room who needed, the credits and the additional education, but typically in a dimly lit room, with a, as I said, didactic PowerPoint presentation. It seemed like there was an opportunity to reinvigorate the model, and that's just what we've done through collaborations with pharma and CME providers such as Medscape and WebMD, where we're actually placing practitioners in headsets on stage, we're filming them and deploying a merged view of their experience. And you're seeing what that looks like, actually taking physicians and experts and projecting them walking through various anatomical structures, heightened interactivity. The result of this is really interesting and cool, immersive and interactive teaching, and conversely, immersive learning for audiences. In smaller settings, we also flip it on the head, and we have the instructor up on stage, not in a headset, but have a small group of attendees, typically between 10 and 20, and synchronized VR experiences moving through a learning experience at the same time.
This is great. So I have to tell all of you who are out there, if you feel like this is very far away, it is not, it is here. So I'm going to give a few shout outs. So one is to Dr. Rahul Rathod, who's probably working hard. He's a cardiologist at Boston Children's Hospital, congenital cardiologist. And they had their Society of Cardiac MR meeting virtually just last weekend or the weekend before. And I'm pretty sure that he was walking through his slides physically, like as if he were in there, kind of pointing at what was going on. And so the beginnings of what you're mentioning now is already happening at a lot of our meetings. And I think the virtual year has pushed us to say we want this to be more interesting. So whereas maybe a year ago we would have felt like this is a little far away, people are swiftly moving into that and able to do it just for the regular meetings we go to. The other shout out I want to give is you showed Also VR, and they're actually going to be our guests in just a few weeks here. So for those of you who are thinking about surgical approaches to VR, they're based in orthopedics originally, but they're now foraying into cardiology. So for anyone whose ears perked up when they heard that, we'll have them come on soon.
Mm-hmm. So I'm a little confused, Ami. I have actually never touched one of these headsets, had it float into my realm of existence. I don't know where to find one, to be honest. Maybe it's Amazon, or maybe I need to hang out with more of the people you hang out with. You've actually been to conferences where you have these headsets?
So yes. So the one that just happened is a virtual conference. And what he was able to do was put himself, standing with a green screen in his PowerPoint, and then moving things around. We're going to have him as a guest to actually show us what he did.
That's insane.
So that's like step one, I think, and not as advanced necessarily as what these guys are able to do. There's definitely been education with VR headsets happening. And I know out at Cedars and some other places in LA, they're doing this for the cath lab and looking into TAVRs and stuff to do this as well. So yes, I think it's here. Where you can buy it is my daughter has a VR headset for National Geographic. She can like walk amongst the dinosaurs. So like the 7-year-old assumes that this is going to be part of her future, just assumes it's going to be part of her future.
Correct.
Great. I wanted to reach out to Emily Fisher. That was a great comment you made. It's interesting to see VR for bolstering empathy and reducing pain. You would think it would be on one side of the spectrum. Emily, will you type in a little bit more about what you're thinking? Because I would love to like explore that thought with you a little bit while we continue to chat. That would be great. So let's go back for a moment to just thinking about the storytelling aspect, right? And so, you know, the empathy with the storytelling, the education with feeling immersed. That is such an essential part of how we all communicate with one another. And one of the things we're always trying to work on is how do you get to those populations who cannot always have access? So we are really focused on kind of structural equity as we're building out virtual care. It doesn't seem like VR glasses are going to be necessarily accessible to some of the populations in our country or globally that most need the care. Are there efforts to think about structural equity and getting this kind of education into the hands of the people who need it the most? Is that an area that's now growing? Either Mike or Josh?
Yeah, I mean, I can comment. I think it's interesting the way that you've been able to focus on telehealth, and fundamentally what you're doing there is kind of removing the restrictions of the physical barriers and the walls, in order to kind of democratize access to your insights for your patients. In a similar capacity, when we're creating content like this, we're breaking down the restrictions that borders had present. So if you think about media, even bigger than this and outside of healthcare, this is the future of media. All media the expectation of consumers, whether in a professional context or not, the new expectation is that it's experiential and it's multidimensional, plus interactivity. In combination, that's what we're going to expect. Fundamentally today, a lot of experiences and even videography is captured to basically be disseminated across the legacy infrastructure, which are screens with borders. But that's not going to be the future, right? If you take some cues from sci-fi as an example, you can imagine that in 10 or 20 years, and our kids in particular are going to be walking past, the gap, and like in Minority Report, there will be a screen or some sort of projection in AR that will project the khaki pants in the correct size that you can see on yourself and click and purchase. So from our view, we are building these multidimensional experiences so they can be utilized in these channels for the moment because they're really robust and relevant. But you can also extract these dimensional models and then use them across other channels. And then everything we do is digital. So long as there is access, even in remote parts, it's easy for us to push this content. It doesn't need to go necessarily in a headset. But again, as you mentioned, because now there is, a greater appreciation and a higher number of devices being shipped, VR is no longer an anomaly that's foreign. It doesn't really need to be explained very much. It's kind of penetrated the household. So there's a consumer acceptance, which is only going to grow. And with it comes the category of really dimensional media.
I love this idea right now, walking past the gap in my size pants. And it's not that far away. So this is exciting. Now that you mention it, though, you had said before, right, you could have a 360 experience on YouTube that is, without having this thing. So you can picture how perhaps if we were educating people about asthma and what happens, right? And you want to educate kids and their parents in at-risk communities about it. They could watch the YouTube video together as a parent and child and learn about what happens to, what happens to their lungs during an asthma attack and how using a certain medication relieves that, right? And so you can, in a way, now that I'm thinking about it, you can picture how this session might be a great way to learn because maybe having that asthma sheet that says red zone, yellow zone, green zone that we all learned doesn't actually make sense to everybody, whereas perhaps this video would.
Okay, that asthma sheet is a silly asthma sheet, so I'm very excited for us to progress past that.
The pulmonologists are going to take us down right now, but I do see potential in a lot of different areas. This is great. So we don't have a lot of time left, guys, and we would just love to hear some closing thoughts. We'll definitely love to have you guys back again. Maybe Josh, first from you about, what direction this is headed in, and maybe
Can I
a little.
do one video, Ami? I know that.
Oh, yes, go ahead.
That was
Yes.
kind of like wow, I didn't know that was happening or that was possible. I'm a very visual learner, and going through medical school was really difficult with textbooks. I don't have books. I don't engage in books. I have written a textbook. I'm writing a textbook chapter with Ami. It's interactive, it's online. But the aha, I think, of driving education home, and that 90% retention number was just astounding to me. So I'd love to just have this one video.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah, so this is an example of a program that we collaborated with Mike on, and it was really to bring the heart to life, right? So as a cardiologist, Dr. Bott, I mean, you are taking care of this organ every day, right? And you are so passionate about the heart. And so we decided we wanted to be able to reimagine in augmented reality and bring this heart to life. So that way, when we're coming in to interact with you, we can bring this to life right in front of you. We can talk about it. We can help discuss how it could support your patient education. And just like Dr. Joe mentioned, I'm also a visual learner. I wasn't really into the textbooks, and it was difficult for me to learn that way. And augmented reality is a great opportunity to really bring content to life and really foster that additional retention.
See, this is amazing, Ami. I'm just going to say this. Josh and Mike don't realize how amazing this is, because the concept of the left and the right atrium and the left and the right ventricle, and the fact that it doesn't necessarily line up on the left and the right side. You know what I'm talking about, Ami.
So first of all, I just need the audience to know, the three of them kind of ganged up on me. They didn't tell me they were going to have this video, probably specifically to see the look of like awe on my face and excitement about wanting to get my hands on this for education of my patients. This is fantastic. You guys surprised me, but I love it. This is where we need to go. Gosh, look how much I could walk patients through with just that one image, never mind all the others you have. We've got to figure out how to put this into play. This is exciting. I think I can see the clinicians in the audience starting to ask questions now. They've all come in strong.
No, it's the left and the right atrium. The left. It's very complicated, Ami, for those, and like where they shoot up on the EKG. And the fact that they don't line up to the front and the back, that was super fascinatingly difficult. But easy to with the 3D model.
So do we have a second then, Jen? I know we're running a little over, but Emily Fisher has written back again, and then Dr. Zahrudin has actually also added a similar question. So maybe can we show those and get these guys' opinion on it?
Sure, absolutely.
Great. So Emily says, one of the preconceived notions of virtual care is that you lose the human connection because you aren't in person. Taking subtle cues of body language, being able to still maintain cues with empathy training is really valuable. But at the same time, dulling the senses with pain management is interesting. So I love that concept, Emily, of how you point out those two. Maybe let's show Sharif's comment as well, Dr. Zahrudin, who really kind of gets to the point, can this damage the relationship between students and educators or patients and healthcare providers? Or how does it affect overall human communication? I'm sure that you, Josh and Mike, have both thought about this.
Does it damage it or does it enhance it?
That's the question. Does it damage or does it enhance? Josh, you're nodding.
Yeah, listen, I was about to answer exactly the same way. I actually think it enhances the communication between students and educators and patients and healthcare providers. If a patient can come to your office more informed and can ask some good questions and really create that opportunity for dialogue, I think it enhances the interaction. But Mike, I'll look to you also to provide your point of view.
Yeah, for sure. I would agree. I mean, everything that we're doing is all in the spirit of enhancing, no doubt, and giving the tools that are necessary to professionals such as yourselves, but then also to caregivers and directly to patients as well. So you had made reference to some asthma card and even looking at a video. I mean, I would go a step further and just fundamentally appreciate the difference between looking at something and stepping inside of it, right? Mm-hmm. And then that's why the recall and the retention in combination with the devices and really beautifully rendered content, it all needs to come together in a way that makes sense. But experiences are how we create memories. versus oftentimes looking and or reading. The retention is just a little bit more difficult. So our whole remit is doing just that, bolstering the experience, giving you tools that are interesting, interactive, and immersive. These last experiences, these last examples we showed with the heart, those are AR. So just quickly to distinguish and differentiate, AR is more of an enhancement of reality. And what you noticed was that was a heart which appeared countertop size. We've done them as big as buildings. Actually, we've had colleagues of yours from Stanford walk inside of the heart who are cardiologists and basically, tell us they've never seen it that way because they're not surgeons. So this is the anatomy they studied their whole life, but they've never been able to get up that close. So certainly in those capacities, there are enhancements. AR here can be projected anywhere here in my home and, on your countertop. It could be a heart, or it could even be what you're seeing a bit of if it's still being shown. We're now also creating holograms of patients and physicians. So if you, again, take your cues from sci-fi in some capacity, if you grew up watching Star Trek and know what, the holodeck was, I can run a video if there's time, but in effect, we're capturing video now from all angles with over 100 cameras for the purpose of bringing a hologram of a patient or a physician to life to, again, tell their story. So talk about connections and experiences. It brings it to a whole nother level.
That's just great. Oh my goodness. The future is looking bright, my friends. This is really exciting. So enhancing the relationship between physicians, nurses, patients, making education more accessible because of really using all the different adult learning techniques that are out there, right? And immersing myself into this idea. I could not say it better. Arnie Joseph is saying, Dr. Rudin, and to all of us, in my experience in working in disease hotspots, a high percentage of people with chronic diseases have a low level of health literacy. A tool such as this can be extremely helpful to those patients as they report that they often don't understand what their physician is saying. I couldn't even sum it up better than that.
Okay. It's interactive. It's an experience. I don't have AR and VR yet, but maybe our next one will be AR and VR, or the mixed AR, VR, MR. Right, there we go.
This is great. This is great. Fantastic.
Would you guys like me to run one more quick video if people are still on the line? It's up to you.
Let's do it. We're going to end with one last video.
Okay, so just quick context here. Again, I was referring to what you can do in AR, and as you can see, this is content rendered digitally that's appearing actually on top of the desk I'm sitting at currently. So desktop-sized experiences deployed through AR. We use a technique called volumetric video, capture content from all angles, so we can do this, which is, in this case, is Dr. Richard Wright. You may know him. He is going to appear magically on my desk, as you'll see in this video, and introduce himself, and then we'll stop the program there.
Hey, my name is Dr. Richard Wright. Today, we will discuss a study based on real-world data. But first, we should point out that randomized clinical trials remain the gold standard for data-based medicine. Nonetheless, real-world studies can be a complementary tool for assessing and reinforcing the safety and efficacy generated by randomized controlled trials.
So you can see there, this is a hologram of him in full 3D. The use case here is for you, clinicians, from home on your devices such as iPads, etc. You could, through augmented reality, see him and have him appear. And in this case, he walks through a pretty complex clinical case overview with loads of interactivity where he engages you to answer questions, which creates bridges. And then there's charts that animate and graph and evolve, etc. So again, you can imagine kind of how the level of engagement increases when you're surprised, sort of through this magical appearance of a colleague of yours.
So I have to say, I'm laughing right now a little bit because our audience is really scared that Dr. Joe and I are just going to appear on their desk as two little humans for the next show and start talking from right there. It's distinctly possible, audience, that this will happen.
We can do it. Come into our studio. We'll do it for you.
Before we go 3D with me. Okay. Is there an option to be like, hey, this is the 10 pounds lighter version of my 3D hologram?
I'm sure
Mike's going to work on that.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, guys, you have given us so much to think about. Our audience has had so much fun. I am certain And we look forward to having you back. By the way, as a Harvard kid, I'm a little jealous of Stanford yet again. Not only do they get sunshine and not this whole month of snow, but they also get to walk through a heart. So I'm just saying we got to bring that here as well. It's going to be part of what we do. For future weeks, we are going to have more discussion with also VR coming up. So you guys will get another chance to think about the surgical side of virtual reality and maybe a little glimpse into what cardiology is going to look like too. We also have a couple more different healthcare delivery platforms coming for virtual care, thinking about how we can bring that into the community. And we have our first few private equity and venture capitalists going to be joining us this month to talk a little bit about how do they think about investing, what do companies need to bring to the table, and a little tips and thoughts about younger people who are starting up their companies. At the same time, please do reach out to Josh John and Mike Marett, as they know how to do it right. They have grown this industry together over the past many years, and we're excited to see where they head next.
Big thank you to the audience for joining us. We loved your questions, and be sure to stay tuned for next Tuesday. Thank you, Josh and Mike.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.